Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that are read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is a neuroscience of sales, biopsychology, ethical influence, high ticket conversations, adopted communication too, no other than Mr. Tony Galente.
Hey, Daniel, thanks for having me.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Tony, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure, I'd be happy to. My name's Tony Galente. I've spent the last 20 years studying neuroscience and human behavior, with the last 14 of those years applying that science to real world sales environments. I've got a new book coming out called Wired: The Real Reasons People Buy, and that book teaches people how to decode buyers' emotional language in the first 90 seconds of meeting them. Before the logic, before the objections, before the scripts, they need to learn how to navigate that conversation using language that the buyer's brain understands.
Mr. Tony Galante, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And let's talk about uncover why sales fail and how to rewire approaches for consistent closes. What is the biggest misconception about how brains make buying decisions that sabotages traditional sales tactics?
Yeah, it's a great question, Daniel. Typically, most people, when you try to sell something, they try to convince you, right? They try to use logic. They try to give you all the reasons to do it. But what they're missing is your brain actually doesn't buy with logic, not initially. It validates your decision, but you actually buy with your emotions. Now, that's not a new concept, but what is new is that how the emotional process works. A lot of people don't understand the mechanics that go into that.
Why do feature heavy pitches activate the brain's skepticism centers instead of desire?
Well, I think what happens is people don't understand that they feel things before they even make a decision, right? It starts with your intuition, and then it leads into your emotional, um, trust of that situation, and then ultimately, you weigh that against the reasons that you should or should not do something. So when it comes to desire, when it comes to fear, anything like that, right? You have to give yourself a moment to kind of run through all those circuits. We just do it so fast we don't realize it.
Hmm. So fast, people, so fast. And which common closing behaviors like urgency pressure that trigger the danger response of our brain?
Yeah, so it's well known that people always try to use urgency. They always try to use a limited time offer or something that you know will pressure the brain into a decision, right? Uh, what actually ends up happening is quite the opposite. Uh, we get tricked by some of that success, right? Some people do make decisions um, because that's how they naturally see the world, and they get fearful of you know not making the right decision or being left behind. But what it turns out to be is, for most people, you end up increasing their stress. You end up causing the brain to shut down, and you actually affect how the decision making center of the brain operates.
Mr. Tony, how does misaligning when offer incentives like discounts, bonuses with the brain's reward cycle kill momentum?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Daniel. So, most people feel like when you go to sell anything, you got to offer things, right? You got to offer a big discount, and that means you got to start your pricing higher, or you just price yourself underneath the market so that everybody thinks it's such a great value. What ends up happening a lot of times is if the discount's too big, most people today don't buy it. They're weary of it, right? They think something's up or something's wrong. And if it's priced too low, the same thing happens as well. You naturally, if you see like a car you wanted to buy, and you're looking at pre-owned cars, and one's listed for $10,000 and the next one's listed for $5,000, but they have similar features and similar listings and mileage and all of that. Well, you're going to start thinking that $5,000 car, there's got to be something wrong with it, right? So it doesn't incentivize you to buy like most people would think. So when you're talking about killing momentum, it really can slow down when you try to discount and throw things at people, because you either A, come off as desperate, and that's not a cologne anybody wants to wear, or B, you are off-putting because that person doesn't feel like you're understanding what they need.
Mr. Tony, let's talk about your upcoming book, Rewire. What are your struggles in writing this book?
Yeah, Wired has been a long time coming. I've spent 14 years, like I said at the beginning, testing neuroscience and behavioral psychology and everything else in between in real world scenarios. It's influenced over $500 million in sales, and it's really been a process of just trying to put all that together in a way that people will be able to use and repeat and scale. And that's a very difficult thing to do because we're human beings and we're not easy to learn, right? We're very messy. Sometimes we do things that don't make any sense. But what I've learned in that process, and I talk about this in the book, is we actually all have our own little brain accent in which we kind of see the world and speak in the world, right? So when writing this book, that was a big component, was helping people understand that the way we communicate with people isn't the same for each person that we talk to. There's actually 5 different types of languages, essentially, you need to know.
So when will be published, Mr. Tony?
Yeah, we're looking to release in the fall, so we're excited about that. So you'll probably see it around September or October, right in time for the holidays.
Looking forward for that, and you are most welcome to come back and let's talk about your wire to the world. Which neurochemical like oxytocin or serotonin must have activated before rational evaluation kicks in?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say probably, oxytocin is probably the most powerful. Not that serotonin isn't, but oxytocin is really where it all happens, right? When you connect with somebody, when you feel a love for them or an affinity toward them,
Yes.
a lot of those other chemicals kind of fall by the wayside. And that's just largely because we all want to be loved and we all want to be with others. And that's why things like social media have taken off the way they have, because we all want the attention. Now, some of us say we don't, but the truth is we all like to have some form of attention, right? No one wants to be by themselves forever. So, yeah, I would say oxytocin is probably the most powerful out of all of them.
Indeed. Oxytocin, indeed. Why does pitching before diagnosing pain activate the brain's rejection pathways?
Yeah, that's really great. So, Daniel, what ends up happening is, for example, if I tried to sell you something right now, and all I do is start talking about what it is and how it works and why you need to buy it, well, I'm pitching you. The problem with that is that I don't even know if you need it, and you don't even know if you need it. We haven't established your why. And earlier we had talked about books that had influenced me in my life, and one of them was a book called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. It's a well-known book.
Yes.
Very, very powerful story in that. But really what he talks about is you need to understand what your why is in terms of what motivates you, your purpose, all of that, right? Well, the same thing can be applied to, selling things to people. And so what we need to do is make sure we understand their why before we start pitching anything. Because if we don't do that, then people just feel like you're disingenuous. It feels cheap. And more importantly, it just turns everybody off.
Very well said, Mr. Tony. Very well said. Beautifully articulated. How does debating prospects reinforce their defensive neural circuits?
Yeah, this is a good one. When I spent some time in the automotive industry watching people trying to sell cars and doing it myself a little bit too, it's always a natural environment for animosity and debate, right? That's a well-known thing that people have all experienced going to buy a car and always feeling a little bit of guard and defensiveness. And so what happens is when you start trying to debate somebody, you create a spike in their cortisol. Now, cortisol is a neurochemical that is related to stress. And what happens there is when cortisol increases, your what they call the prefrontal cortex, that's the decision-making executive center of your brain, shuts down effectively. And so you just stop making decisions like a normal, rational individual would. You start acting primitively and you start acting out like a child. And that doesn't go well for anybody. So when you try to debate somebody, you challenge them effectively. And in some cases, their brain thinks that you're trying to attack them in a way that they need to survive from. It feels like a personal attack, like if they don't fight back or if they don't run away, they're gonna die. And that's not as literal as what happens, but in your brain tricks you into thinking it's just as bad. Like, this is bad, we need to protect ourselves, so we're going to double down in our position or we're just going to get out of here. So when you try to debate as a sales professional with anybody, which is commonly taught, win the debate, control the conversation, you end up putting yourself in a really bad position.
Shaping the future of sales, one mindset at a time. Can you expound this phrase on your website?
Yeah, so we're just trying to help people find a better way to communicate. It's really what it comes down to. So much of everything in life comes down to your mindset and your beliefs and what you think you should do. That's usually influenced by many factors, people around us, things we've read, situations that were positively reinforced or negatively reinforced at times. But ultimately, shaping those future sales professionals to know that they don't have to have the mindset of I gotta close them or I gotta hit my quota. Yes, those are important things. You do need to have any business make a transaction to stay in business, but there's a way to have a conversation with people. There's a way to transact. There's a way to connect that can yield you way more results just by understanding how the brain operates and just by understanding how we naturally process information. So that's what we're trying to do, is we're just trying to help people, look at it through a different lens and find a different way to maybe be a little bit more authentic to themselves. A lot of salespeople struggle with that. They struggle with feeling like they have to be something that they really don't have to be.
What specific question types light up the insula to create urgency in the brain?
I would say probably the question types that you want to definitely ask to not trigger a negative response are really no questions at all. And what I mean by that is there's a thing called elicitation. Have you heard of this before?
No, not yet. Can you enlighten us, Mr. Tony?
Yeah. So elicitation is basically you making a statement about something to elicit a response rather than asking a question. So, for example, you say, "Hey, I read this article that all Uber drivers, get treated out of 50% of their commissions if they don't complete all their rides in a day." And you're sitting there talking to an Uber driver, and the Uber driver goes, "Oh man, you have no idea. Like, let me tell you all about it," right? So in that instance, by not asking a question right away and by making a statement of something that you've learned or know or think is true, you invite that part of the brain to open up and say, okay, this isn't something where I have to formulate an answer. There's no stress involved. It's just us having a conversation. Whereas when you ask a question right away, it puts the brain on notice and it says, oh, we're getting asked a question. What do they want from us? And it may be a simple question. Maybe just if you want a glass of water, but, for whatever reason, our brain just works that way. Whenever we get asked a question, we always naturally feel a little bit of that tension, right? So that's, I would say, the best way to handle that is to not start with a question at all.
Mr. Tony, as a neuroscience of sale, buyer psychology, and ethical influence, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Short term, finishing this book and getting it out there for the fall for people to enjoy. Longer term, looking forward to seeing who connects with it and helping them, on their journey. This was a lot of time and effort put in, a lot of hard work. I definitely didn't want to learn it the hard way, but I had to because no one else was doing it. So definitely very proud of the accomplishment over the years, and definitely looking forward to seeing how I can make a positive impact on a space that has long been held in low regard.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Tony, and looking forward for the success of your book. And I hope it will be a bestseller and you will be award-winning author. What will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be an author, want to be a neuroscience of sales, or buyer psychology, and ethical influence?
Yeah, well, to be an author, I mean, you got to have a story to tell. That's what it's usually about. Using your personal experiences and applying them in a way that helps people or captivates their imagination or, makes them feel alive. Storytelling's always been that. And in terms of studying science as applies to social sciences, I would say, anybody who wants to communicate better, who wants to understand their world around them better, who's constantly saying like, it is what it is. I guess that's just who they are. Or why do they always act that way? You can get these answers. They're out there. It's not as easy as you would think to get them, but over time, you start learning how the brain works. Over time, you start learning how to put the pieces together, and then you start applying it to your life. And when you start doing that, things get a lot easier. And it's not perfect. You still have a messy life here and there, but I've noticed that I can understand why people do things now versus what I didn't understand all those years ago.
Well, thank you for your advice, Mr. Tony. And why does narrative structure increase retention 7 times over data? And where should stories land in the funnel?
Yeah, that's a good one. So, storytelling has gone back to prehistoric times, when we were cavemen and women, right? And you didn't have technology then, not like the way we have it today. And so, to entertain yourself, you gather around the campfire or in the cave and you'd share these made up stories, of tales of experiences that were conjured in your mind. And then eventually, those made up stories became, more, real stories. And now we have all sorts of stories that are out there. People, selling stories in short form, long form, any form you want, right? And it's hard to tell these days with the AI coming in fast. It's hard to tell what's real anymore. So it's only going to get more interesting. But yeah, when you're using narrative storytelling, what it really does is it just helps you connect with people, because if you're using facts and figures and all those other things, there's only 1 out of 5 people in the world, maybe 1.5, in terms of the different personalities that are out there, that even enjoy that. So when you think about it, most people are not going to be on that ship. So you want to put something together that elicits a response, that makes them feel something, that brings you closer together. And Disney and Pixar are a perfect example of that. In fact, if people want to look it up, Pixar actually has a whole set of rules in terms of how to tell a story that they use for all their movies. So I definitely would encourage people to check that out.
Yes, check it out, people, and watch one brain aligned closing sequence that works across industries.
Yeah, yeah. So your brain, again, has to process safety first, trust second, and logic third. So no matter who you're talking to, no matter what you're selling, no matter what you're communicating, it all comes down to getting through each door. And so in the book, we talk about this. We break it down exactly how to do it so that you can come out on the other side feeling good, them feeling good, you communicating, everybody connecting. But ultimately, what it comes down to is you being able to navigate each door, you being able to show the person in front of you or the person that you're talking to online or on the phone or in text that you're here to help, that they can trust you, and that more importantly, you've got what they need to help get them to the other side of whatever they want. So, there's a lot that comes into it, but that's about as simply as I can put it right now.
Mr. Tony, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and law 101 and mental health 101 are my baby podcasts. Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, in Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Mr. Tony, can you share a case study where fixing one neural mistake doubled close rates in 60 days?
Yeah. There's a well-known story, actually study, I should say, started as a story because people didn't know about the study by Stanford University, and they're a pretty well-known neuroscience department in the world. So what they did is they went to what they called a famous coffee shop, which is probably Starbucks, and they tried to see if they could cut the line. And so it went like this. They went up to a busy store, the line was out the door, and they said to the person in front of them, "Hey, can I cut the line?" And 80% of those people, almost 90% of those people said no. Overwhelmingly, if they gave them a reason to cut the line, people said yes. So what was
Yes.
interesting about that is they literally gave them any reason. They would walk up to people and go, first they started saying, "Hey, can I cut the line? I'm running late to work." Sure, no problem. Then they literally said, "Hey, can I cut the line? It's nice outside." And people were like, sure. They didn't even realize what they were saying, because your brain, for whatever reason, there's a gap there that happens when someone gets your attention and gives you a reason that they need to do something for whatever reason. I can get into that more later in another episode, but for whatever reason, your brain goes ahead with it most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time, because most people are halfway paying attention anyway. So that's a pretty interesting study that I've always found to be interesting. And something I've used in my career is no matter what I did, no matter what I was selling to somebody, I always gave them a reason. Now, it works better when you listen to them and understand where they're coming from, and then use that, as a good way to help, move your deal forward. But you'd be surprised. Some people would just buy things just because I gave them any reason. So yeah, it's an interesting study. I would definitely encourage people to check that one out.
Yes, people, can I cut the line and to listen to Book 101 review? Mr. Tony Galente, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your upcoming books, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to help anybody who's out there listening to this. I do speaking engagements, I do training seminars. More importantly, you can connect with me on LinkedIn and also on our website. So that's salesmindsetcoach.com, salesmindsetcoach.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn under A Galente, Galente.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Tony Galante because if you support him, more and more and more empowering books to come, more and more empowering advocacy to come, and for sure, more and more empowering business to come. So, Mr. Tony, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.